Welcome to Heal the Hurt, the podcast dedicated to guiding you on your journey to mental wellness and healing from trauma. Each episode, we delve into the heart of healing, exploring the paths to overcome trauma, regain strength, and reclaim joy in our lives. Whether you're taking your first steps toward recovery or you're well on your way, this is a place for connection, understanding, and real talk about the challenges and triumphs of the healing process. Together, we'll uncover insights, share stories, and embrace the power of resilience. So take a deep breath and let's begin the journey of healing together. This is Heal the Hurt, where your journey of transformation and hope starts now. Hey everybody, and welcome to the Heal the Hurt podcast. My name is Chris, and I am joined today with, by a good buddy of mine from good night, 15 years of age, maybe 16 is when we met. I think it was sophomore year. Mm-hmm. It was sophomore year.
Yep.
That we met. So we're not gonna date ourselves. Yeah, we will. 26 years ago, man.
Mm-hmm.
26 years ago. And so my friend Nick, and Nick, thanks for being
hold on.
here.
It's not that long ago. It's not 26 years ago.
Yeah, Matt, we did go to Springville High School, so math is not our
2000?
strong suit.
It's probably 2000. So 24.
Yeah,
not
24 years ago.
24
years ago.
I'm turning 40 this year, so yeah. I'm hanging on to every second of it.
We should clip this and just start over. We won't really, but so for you viewers, this is going to be a special episode for me. And so thanks for tuning in, and thanks for being here, and thanks for spending some time being willing to dig deep and listen. And I want to invite you to just open up your emotions, open up your heart, and just experience what might come up for you. So, Nick, tell the viewers, tell this audience, tell the world who you are.
I'm Nick Ozuna. I'm a guy from Provo. I'm a dad, first and foremost. And I've been through some stuff recently, so that's kind of spurred me to talk more about it, talk more about myself, my path, and hopefully find somebody else on the same path or people walking a similar path to help me get to where I'm trying to get, and pick up people who are just a little bit behind on this path that could use the same thing.
I love it. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Before we started recording this episode, as we chatted, we talked about a few things, but the idea of this journey being an ongoing process, and we're all at different stages. And so often we think we might feel isolated. We might feel alone. And one of the intentions of a podcast like this is to connect with others who might similarly feel alone, or that nobody else gets it. And so one of our missions is to connect and to bring people together, even though, unfortunately, a lot of the time that togetherness, that similarity is pain, is suffering and sorrow.
Mm-hmm. And
so the theme, the title of this podcast and our nonprofit is Heal the Hurt. And we might think, well, what do you mean hurt? Is a sprained ankle or something like that? And Nick and I used to play basketball together, pick up basketball, and he's a decorated athlete. And I think of the times that I'd roll my ankle and that hurt for a few days really bad, and then for a few weeks, and sometimes lingering. And we use a lot of analogies in healing pain. And I think the most pressing of our pains are emotional and psychological pains. Mm. And those bruises of the physical wounds, they last a little bit of time, but eventually they heal and they get better. And sometimes we forget, like, oh, I can't remember which ankle it was, or I can't remember which finger was broken, or like where, what happened, and is there a scar there?
Mm.
But those emotional and psychological wounds, we remember those vividly.
Oh, yeah.
And our hope is that this inspires somebody else to connect with their story, connect with those wounds, and then, if appropriate, share that healing process, what they have done or what they're doing to heal, to seek serenity and peace.
Yeah. For me, it is the great connector. And what it took was the walls being shattered by it. I lived in this shell of, I can deal with everything. I'm strong enough to handle it. That whole facade. And I still often wear that mask. That's sort of my everyday outward approach. It's the Nick to the world. But when something happens like that, and in my scenario specifically, it was pretty public. So there's no hiding what happened and then how you're supposed to feel about it. In fact, that was one of those things that I struggled with, was how to feel about it for other people, which is weird. But there's always that outside, or at least for me, it was like, how do I do this the right way for everybody else? Like it was, and maybe that just goes back to my default mode where it's just like, I'm going to do this and present in a way that is, I got this. I can handle this. It's not a big deal. But when you have something like that breaks your world apart, for me, I just started looking for anything, anywhere to share, anybody who could say, I kind of understand what you feel like. And as time went on, just anybody that you could connect with at all, because there's all this emotion and all these things that I don't understand, all these trying to figure out what is evil and what is murder and what is even things like, what's my relationship with money? Like this totally changed how I looked at, what people will do for money and what desperate people are willing to do. So for me, I agree that pain is a great connector, unfortunately, but how awesome, because, logically everybody can understand that on the other side of the struggle is the growth. Like to stretch yourself, to go through the hard things is where you learn the most about yourself and really about the world. And so even if it is pain, I wish I had a better story. I wish I was funnier. I wish I had a tech company that just took off and people wanted to talk about that, but that's not my vessel. That's not my vehicle. My vehicle is harder than that, emotionally harder than that. So, but it gets to the root of it. Like we were talking to earlier, it's a great icebreaker. And for me, connection is paramount. That's what I want more than anything. And I think I've always wanted that. And as weird as it is, some part of me is grateful to have the story that I have, because I feel like I'm the steward of these people, their story, their legacy, and then of course their babies, the future of it. And there's a lot of pride for me in that, but also it's what scares me the most is doing that right.
I use this motion, is that what you call this?
Yeah.
A motion or a gesture?
Gesture, yeah.
I use this gesture a lot in my therapy office and metaphorically speaking in the mirror to acknowledge mixed emotions. And when I was a younger person, my grandfather would say, I've got mixed emotions about that. And I had no clue what that meant. It was like, well, something either makes you sad or happy. Mm-hmm. And as men, there's kind of that socially programmed, like you're fine, you're good, you're laughing, you're mad. It's like a 6-pack of Crayola crayons. Mm-hmm. Like there's a limit. Mm-hmm. And as I grow in life and experiences, I realize it's more like the 96 pack of different Crayola shades of colors. And like, there is no just purple.
Yeah.
There is no just green. There's like different shades. And I really try to apply that principle to our emotions and how we experience things, even our thoughts around different circumstances that happen. Rarely anymore do I think something is all or nothing, that it's just one or the other. Like there's a lot of that middle ground, like different shades of it. Absolutely. And they can exist together and be fine. We don't have to judge it. We don't have to analyze it, but if we'll notice, this is where I'm at right now, this is what I'm feeling, we can say, well, I don't want to feel this way forever, but I am right now. Mm-hmm. And I have to be honest I have to be genuine with myself. You made a moment ago, as you were speaking, I thought of the Brene Brown clip on YouTube. You can type in Brene Brown sympathy versus empathy, and it's a cartoon. There's a bear, a fox, and I think like a gazelle. And I think it's one of the greatest depictions of somebody going, oh, I get what you're going through. I know what you're going through, or that's so hard. Or when I hear of your pain and I have an emotional reaction, you're now having to comfort me when you're the one dealing with it. You're the one that's the closer to the epicenter of that pain. Mm-hmm. But everyone else surrounding us that's not prepared to feel that is also having a reaction. Yeah. And so in that video, it's brilliant. I believe it's the bear says there's an experience of kind of discomfort shared or observed. And the bear says, ooh, I don't even know what to say right now. I'm just so glad you told me. And that is, my goodness, the times I've tried to remember to say that to my kids when they struggle. And it's not like, oh, come on, let's get over it on the way to baseball game with my boy, or a teenager who's dealing with different things in life. And it's like, we can be present without trying to solve it for somebody else or say, you shouldn't be ... No, we're just here right now. Yeah. We're just present in this space.
I heard many times, don't should on me.
Yeah.
I'm sure that makes the rounds. But,
it does.
But that stuck with me. I still say that to my kids. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm not going to shit on you. Don't shit on me. Just do what you should. Like, that there are inborn expectations, whether it be in a family or a society, like a community, whatever it is, laws. My kids, at the very least, I'll just speak for them, know what those are. So I try not to shit on them.
Yeah.
Because they know. Not should. I know they know.
Yeah, they know. And we also have this thing called like agency or life. And sometimes I reflect, and maybe it's my stubbornness that, yeah, I know this is likely to happen, or these are the odds, but I've got to learn for myself. Mm-hmm. I can't just take someone else's experience. And sometimes that brings pain, and sorrow to us. And sometimes
it brings enlightenment.
Yeah.
When I hear people who have lost like siblings to murder, like their perspective is so much different than mine sometimes. And I'm like, oh, I'd never thought about doing that. I'd never thought about approaching it like that. So yeah, far be it for any of us to tell anybody what they should feel or how to navigate something, because in doing that, one, you're rejecting or invalidating somebody. It feels like, to me at least, like I feel invalidated a lot because people do what the fox or whoever it was want to do. When really, I think I'm talking through my pain for myself. And if you were just like a conscientious objector, like the bear, like, I can't even, like, I'm so grateful you let me in. Like, I don't know how to help you, but I'm grateful. And I can see that this is hard.
Yeah.
I think
go ahead.
I think that's mostly what I want, because I don't know what my feelings are either. And I don't want to mix yours and mine, because like you say, I was oftentimes holding people's hand through me telling my story. And it came to a point where it was like, how are you doing was, well, I could fuck your day up if you want me to. But I was just tired of that. I was tired of answering that. How are you doing? You know how I'm doing. Like, let's do better. Let's do better. Help me help you. Because I'm tired of, oh, they're so lucky. Yeah, they are so lucky. Or, going along with the platitudes to make somebody else feel better. Being nice instead of being kind or compassionate.
Yeah.
those are teaching moments I understand now. So we'll see how it goes moving forward.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that you brought that up. And I want to say one thing that I'm going to ask you to dig. It's okay to enforce a boundary to protect ourselves. It's okay to tell somebody no, or not today, or I'm not going to go there. It's okay to decline a call. It's okay to not show up somewhere, because we're taking care of ourselves first and foremost. And I love that you said at the beginning, your role as a father. And yes, I agree. We have these rank order priorities in our world and rank order values. And so often we forget to remember that we have to be first. We have to put ourselves first. And if I'm speaking in a group or something, I make that comment that we have to put ourselves first. And there's a few different kind of population or audience member stereotypes who will argue the most fervently about that. And I've learned to not argue much with mothers and grandmothers. But you and I have a mutual friend who taught me a few years ago. He said the statement to me, the better you take care of yourself, the better you can take care of everyone around you, the people that you love. And so it's not all or nothing. Again, it's not, well, if I take care of me, that means I have nothing left for everyone else. It's being conscientious of it. It's being very well aware and balancing that time that if in this moment I need a break, and it's okay. You know?
Yeah. Living in that gray area, it's a spectrum. Workaholics, there's always a spectrum to everything, but I like to be in that gray area where I might move along the spectrum even. More times I'm focused on, like, if I'm feeling creative at work, or if I have good people to reach out to, following up after a conference is always fun. But then there are times where I'm like, I'm not doing shit for work. Like, I have no drive. I have no interest. It's pissing me off. I'm going to slide back to dad, like this end. Like this is where I want to be. This is what is most important to me. That I can do that anywhere. A job's a job. I just saw this. It was graft. Who do you spend your time with? And showed over time, friends, family, spouse, kids. And it just hit me, like, who are you spending your time with? If you have, I don't remember how many it is, 400 weeks or 400 months or whatever it is. I forget what the number is.
Yeah.
When you break it down into incremental, like how many visits you actually see your family in a year, it's like, oh, yeah, I'm spending my time doing the wrong things. Taking care of yourself, paying your bills is important, of course. You need that. You need that stability, but that should not be paramount. That should not be your number one focus. Work is not the purpose.
Right.
The purpose is doing human work, building your community, being self-sufficient in your community. And that's not to say like growing your own food. I mean, that's all well and good, but you have everything you need in your neighbors and in your friends. I think we're all just kind of stuck in this keyboard phase where ideas to us seem best shared virtually. Sitting down and talking about things seems like that was what we did when we were kids. That's old news. We don't do that anymore. We share it on a blog.
Yeah.
Let's make content out of it.
All
first
this
and
stuff,
foremost.
they were just ideas. These weren't real. I remember landline phones. We have these, like even this is kind of old school. Having a wire
recorded,
having a cable or cord to something. And somebody the other day that's younger said to me that she has a VCR, and I think my jaw dropped. It's like, you do? And she's like, I even have some tapes. It's like, yeah, that's
we've still got it in the drawer. Pull it out every once in a while.
Yeah.
Watch the Red Devil senior video.
Yeah, absolutely.
Shout out Scott Hall. Thanks, Scott.
Buddy. Man, just for a split second, just even as we think back to those times, there's something that happens internally, not for everybody. And for some, it's pain. For some, it's, oh, that was really hard. Mm-hmm. And then others, it's good memories from childhood.
Yeah.
And so I want to acknowledge the mixed bag that can be, but.
Yeah, I sort of lived it in a movie, like a quintessential high school way, where I started telling you I grew up sort of as a neglected kid. I was taken care of, but I wasn't loved or really paid attention to. And I kind of grew up that way. And I first learned acceptance really playing basketball in G-Wing with the other kids that I call them dirtbags because I feel like I'm a dirtbag kid. But I was playing, me and the other dirtbags were playing basketball, and I felt community in that, and then acceptance because I was good at it. And then that led me to make the team that year. And then it was like everything changed. I went from nobody caring, like not people at school like that. I was a fairly new kid, so that wasn't new to me. But being accepted just generally, like seeing people say, hey, you're the one, are good at something. You are worth me looking at and acknowledging. Like that was new to me. And that changed everything. So I had this, started out like just overlooked and sad and like what I like not even considering what the future is. Like there's no future. There's just like, this is just what life is. And then playing sports, having a friend group, being introduced to all these new experiences, be it people parties and just things expanding. My world expanded really quickly, and it was really cool. But then I was also cynical about it because I knew it was fake. Because it was one thing one day, and then a totally different thing the next day. And so I was very wary of it. But I do understand that, like, I had a great second half of high school experience. Like, my childhood ended on a high. I thought, the world was mine. Mm-hmm. And but it speaks to, I didn't know you could go to college. Like, literally had no idea until I got a letter in the mail from BYU saying that they had seen me playing football. And I was like, nobody had ever talked about it with me. Mm-hmm. To give you some idea of what my family was like. I was the first one to walk in high school. People graduated, but they got their GEDs or young mother school, stuff like that. I was the first one to just go to high school and graduate, which to me was a big deal.
Huge.
Yeah. So, yes, I acknowledge both paths because I feel like I walked. Well, there's more than two paths, but I walked those two at the very least. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm interested in if you're in the position to share your story, to share your pain over the last few years. And, the theme of this podcast is that, heal the hurt. And I'll invite you to, we didn't really talk about this prior to, and we discussed, having ideas, but being inspired to share what feels right in the moment. Mm-hmm. And so, to honor you, I want to invite just to whatever extent you feel comfortable and feel it appropriate to share.
Yeah.
Where you've been for the last few years and what's been going on.
Yeah. So, it was, so everything, I would say my trials probably started November of 2018. So November of 2018, I'm going to work. Everything's great. Like I have a job that's great. I'm making more money than I've ever made up to that point. I'm working with a friend, so like everything's good. Going to work one day, and I'm the passenger in the work van that gets T-boned by a crane truck, and I should have died. I've seen the video of it. It's crazy, but that shook me. Like I've never had anything really bad happen to me. Never been in an accident or been hurt or like really lost anybody. But that, it was weird. I started having panic attacks. Like it messed my body up. It was weird. It was a weird phase for me. And then fast forward to May of the next year, May of 2019. And I'm finally feeling better. I'm still in like a weird place. I was diagnosed with a TBI, whatever that means. Like, I'm fairly normal. But like, I knew that I was a little bit different, foggy, and my memory was bad and things like that. My body still felt banged up, but I was going back to the gym. Everything, like, me and Jess were doing good. We were eating healthy. We were taking care of ourselves. Life was in a good phase. And I say that because I'm having coffee in the morning, as I do any of the good mornings with Jess in the kitchen. The kids are getting ready to go to school, and my phone rings, and it's my little sister, Kasia, and which is weird. I don't have a good relationship with that side of my family, so it's unusual for me to get calls. And this was 7:30 in the morning, so I answer the call, and she's hysterical. She's I can't understand anything she says, and I think the couple of words that I pick out of it are Rachel and Kairos, dead, dehydrated. I think those are the only words that I can remember now. I didn't understand it. She wasn't able to, like, clearly talk. She's crying. So I just tell her, send me your location. So she's at home. And so I go over to my dad's house, and I walk in, and they tell me that my sister and my nephew and my sister's boyfriend had been murdered, had been killed. And that's hard to process even now. I'm on that path, but I couldn't believe it. I just didn't know what to do, didn't know what to say, but I had to go tell my mom. So the whole day is spent with me telling my family, these are little, like, traumas along the way, that, like, things that I remember very clearly. Having to tell my mom that news, and that it was tough. And then it was like, nobody knows why or how or anything. This happened in the state of Virginia. So we started planning, and my sister had 2 babies. So it was, my nephew was 14 that was killed. It was my sister and her boyfriend. And then there was a 6-week-old baby and a 16-month-old baby, or 14-month-old, still in the house. So they were found. They'd been alone for almost 3 days by themselves. This baby in the swing, and then this toddler in the house. And they had tied everybody up and slit their throats. So the babies were there with the bodies for 3 days. The baby was in the swing, but so they were found by my nephew's dad, who hadn't heard from his son for a couple of days. And so he went over there and he found them, which that's I can't imagine how terrible that is. So we go out. I have a task force, me and my cousin and my son, Carter, who's also 14. He was my nephew's best friend. We all went out to Virginia to do what? I don't really know. I mean, obviously there's familial things that need to happen when somebody dies. But more than that, we were talking to detectives, like homicide detectives, and answering questions, and trying to get access to the house, and trying to figure out what is going on with the babies who are in foster care, and all while doing this in a strange place. And we still didn't know who killed them or why, or, like, nobody had been caught at this point. So we were just out there meeting with Mike's family, meeting with detectives, meeting with social workers, people in all phases of the judiciary. It was just this whirlwind. And then you didn't know what was safe and what wasn't. And then we got access to the house. And that's its own set of things. So my sister, same thing. That was the first house she ever owned. And they owned it for not very long before they were killed. But to walk into it from the perspective of me and her as kids growing up, it was like, this was her house. She did it. She'd finally made it, gotten to this point in her life. And it reeked of blood and death. That's what I remember. I remember it was a house full of love. I said that. Like, there was a nursery, there was a new baby, there was, they had just remodeled it, so it was beautiful. There was like unpacked boxes and stuff. They were still moving in, and they had this baby. Like they were in the middle of it. Like, you know, any of us who are parents, you've been there. Like, shit's just messy everywhere. And that had a profound impact on me because I still can't smell blood or taste it without like having a physical reaction, because it just stays with you. So we walked through the house, and something people don't know is they don't clean up after something like this. Like you have to do that. You have to hire somebody to do that, or you have to do it yourself. So we walked into a triple homicide where babies had been left for days. So it was pretty gnarly. And so we hired somebody to come clean the house, and we started going through the things. And that for people who have done that I've talked to, go through somebody who passes things, that's an experience too. You just reminisce. The finality of them not being there isn't there yet, but just the idea that like this is theirs, it still smells like theirs. You know, that leaves a lasting impression on you. So, but we did that. We went through the house because at the same time that we're just out there, there's no time to grieve. We're actively grieving. We're, you know, in motion and grieving because we have to go to all these appointments trying to figure out how to take the babies home, how to take care of the babies, who's going to take care of the babies, gather stuff from the house while still helping the detectives answering all the questions that you can. And so it was just this whirlwind of things that in the end, a lot of people did a lot of things to help us out. We were able to take the babies home within that week. So like, I met the babies. I forget what day of the week it was, but say it was like a Wednesday. I met the babies on Wednesday. We bought tickets that night, and we were flying home Thursday with 2 new babies added to the family. Still with no answers. We didn't know anything, but I mean, what were we going to do?
Yeah.
So me and my team, we brought the babies home, and Jess's story about that week is a cool one about community, just how everybody came together, how everybody showed up. Everybody carried us through that. Well, through that period of time, really, we had people just doing all kinds of things, whether it be cleaning our house or dropping food off or just dropping by to talk, which, you know, as much as we were aggravated by it sometimes, looking back, you're grateful that people showed up. Even if they didn't know what to do, they just knew that the right thing to do was to be there for you. And so we come back immediately to, you know, we were a pretty full house before with 3 kids at home. And then we packed these 2 little ones into a place that we didn't really have room for them. And started from there. We've never really had space and time to like grieve. I feel like I think we've had to figure out how to grieve in motion, and a lot of that is grief about the people you lost, grief about the life that you lost, grief about how it changes you and your kids. You know, the innocence that your kids lose, the future that they lose, the perspective on the world and life that you and the kids that you just try to keep safe lose. Like, if something like that can happen to a 14-year-old kid while he's just playing Xbox, why couldn't it happen to you? Or why couldn't it happen to, obviously there's clear answers to that. But it just brings it home to like, you could do everything right. You could just be somebody adjacent to somebody who's making bad decisions, and well, that changes everything. You could lose your life for it. And in our example, you could lose the life that you had, you know? So, and we're still going through it. We're still, I'm in therapy, but honestly, we haven't done near enough therapy as a family. And that's kind of what this is trying to find ways to heal myself, because as you say, if I'm not good, I can't really do a whole lot for anybody else. I give great advice, but for those that see me day in and day out, it's like, yeah, you give great advice, but what are you doing?
Are you taking it?
Yeah, get on it. That's great advice, but do something. And that's where I think that's another lasting effect of this is I'm just scared. Loss has affected me in such a way that I'm scared to lose everything now. It was my family, and it could be my family again. Not to say they would get murdered, but man, if I lost anybody else at this point, this is what I think. Like it's unfathomable. We've given up enough.
Yeah.
Any one of them. Yeah. And if I feel like that, I can't imagine how it would affect any of my kids if they lost any one of us. That. But this is the fear that I live with. That to me I think it's holding me back. I think this is the fear outweighs the courage to do the things that make the difference for myself. Yeah.
Number one, thank you, Nick, so far at this point. I've known only very minute amounts of the story and the impact even more. And that weight that you've carried for so long. And so I can't express how proud of you I am and how honored I feel that you're opening up in my presence, that you're opening up to an audience that some some of the people that will see this know you intimately and love and adore you and Jess and your kids. And, as you were talking a moment ago about the community, I think back to some of my experiences with you and with Jess, and I personally don't know a soul who, if I'm talking to them and said, Nick and Jess, they don't smile. Their eyes don't light up. That is the kind of people that you guys are. And so I love that a community, that you've led a community in. Mm-hmm. You guys have earned that love and support and compassion from a community because you've given and you've given and you've given. And I've watched that. I've known Jesse longer than you, mm-hmm. Not longer than you have, but prior to meeting you, and just the good people that you guys are. And so as people share their pain, I heard that quote that phrase a long time ago, the question of why do bad things happen to good people? Mm. And I've never settled on an answer to that. I don't know if anyone else has, but kind of the unknown.
I think bad things happen to everybody. Yeah. And I think bad things lead people to make bad decisions that paint them as bad people. This whole process, one of the weird things was, so they caught the killers a year later. It took a year and they caught them. There was 5 of them. And then, so this was during COVID. So they were killed in 2019. They caught them, I think, November of 2020. So mid-COVID. So everything was shut down, even the courts. So they weren't doing trials. So they caught them, but we had to wait. And we didn't know when that was going to happen. Mm-hmm. I think finally it happened in 2022. We had the murder trial in January in 2022. And man, I went down the rabbit hole of trying to understand how people end up this way, mm-hmm. and what evil is. Because a lot of what I was hearing was how evil, like these evil people, these evil men, this is what evil looks like. And to me, they just look like guys. Mm-hmm. Like I've seen guys like that before. They're black guys, so maybe not in Utah, but like in Baltimore, guys look like that all the time. They didn't look anything extraordinary to me. They didn't look evil. They didn't look desperate. They didn't look kind necessarily. They just looked like people to me. Mm-hmm. So that messed with me. I was like, what are people like? I know what they did. So I went down this rabbit hole of trying to understand what evil is. And like a lot of the examples they use is Nazi Germany, and how do normal people end up doing what ended up happening there? And there's just this slight progression. Jordan Peterson talks about if I encroach on you 2 inches and you push back 1, well, I've still advanced 1. And, pretty soon you take account of where you are and you're like, wait, how did I get here? Like, this isn't who I am at all. Mm-hmm. And that's what I ended up deciding is that, I mean, there are ways to define evil, but really it's people get put in desperate situations where the only way out is maybe taking something from somebody, which is what looks like happened in this case, where they were trying to. So for context, the reason this happened, this doesn't just happen randomly. My sister's boyfriend was a high-level drug dealer, drug trafficker. They say he had ties to the cartel. So that's not who did this. It was a nephew of his from a previous marriage who was setting him up to rob him. So that was the whole idea. Like, they needed money. So we're going to set up this big drug deal, and they were looking to get, I don't know, so much amount of drugs and like $100,000. Like that was the goal. Why 3 people had to lose their lives for somebody to enjoy that for a year, I don't know. But what it looks like happened is there was a robbery set up. They realized there was a family there. They can't leave witnesses. So they had to kill the witnesses. Like, it's as simple as that. When you write it down, that's what it is. Mm. When you know the people involved in the story then becomes very different than, but on paper, that's what it looks like happened. So, like, and then to add to that, one of the guys testified against the other 4. And he said, watching him testify was just another account of just this human connection where this guy was in the house when my family was murdered. He was part of it. He even tied up my sister and my nephew. Like, he bound their hands, this guy that I'm looking at. But to hear him tell his story, I believed him. Like, he said, this isn't who I am. And I'm doing this, I'm testifying, knowing full well that my life's in danger this now. Like, me going against these people, but I need my daughter to know that this is not who I am. I did not sign up to hurt anybody. And in fact, during his testimony, he talked about how him and another guy were like, the ringleader said, well, she needs to die and the kid needs to die. And 2 of them were like, no, man, I don't hurt women. I don't hurt children. That's not. So even in that moment, there was humanity. Mm-hmm. Even in that moment. So to hear him tell that story, I believed him. Like, I was seeing him tell it and I believed him. Mm-hmm. So I knew he wasn't an evil guy. And then to hear his story about how his wife was terminally ill, he was living out of his car, he had a daughter that was the same age as our nephew, like, all of a sudden the picture broadens. Instead of it just being this spotlight on this guy's a murderer, well, it turns out he wasn't a murderer. He picked bad friends who made bad decisions. He ended up in a position where, I mean, he had to watch people die. He had to see something that he was not ready for, didn't sign up for, didn't want, and that he related to in a human way. So I say all that to say, I think bad things just happen. And how you deal with that, or how often you have to deal with that, is what would make somebody bad. I think some people are just wired to be instrumentally, like, utilitarian and use people for their gain. I think there are those people, but some of those people run businesses that are super successful, so it's not all bad, but it's a lot to say that I think bad things just happen. Perhaps
there's an application of those traits and those characteristics, and be they flaws, strengths, or whatever. And the analogy of boiling a frog in water came to mind as you talked about Jordan Peterson. And how did it get here? How did it get to this? How did I get here? How did this happen? Trying to seek those answers.
Yeah. It's tough. And it's you have to go against your fundamental programming too. Like, the easy thing is to say it's evil. And the easy thing is to say, well, they should be put to death, eye for an eye. people throw the word justice around, and to me it means something different. I don't know what it means, because real justice to me it would be to trade what they took for what I want, and that's not possible. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't want to kill somebody to get back my people. If cosmically that was the equation, I wouldn't fight against that. But really, that serves me no purpose. I want my people back. I want them to watch and raise their family. Like that's what I want. That's not possible. So what is justice then? Like what do all these things mean, all of these words? And really it just comes down to what is your interpretation of how can I be peaceful? What is my peace? Where do I find homeostasis in all of this? And I'm still working through that. I don't know. I envision the scales of justice, and justice being blind and holding them, and my scales are going like this. I'm not sure. Mm-hmm. I have yet to find equilibrium in it, but I'm still walking that path.
You used the word static earlier when we were talking, and it's not rarely, if anything, I don't know. We might pause for a few minutes, and what is static in this world, in this life? Like, I can't think of anything. Mm-hmm. We'll go up on a challenge, a rope course, and there are two types of rope that are used: static, the one that doesn't give, and then dynamic, which is the one that stretches, it flexes under weight. Mm-hmm. And my goodness, the times that we could apply that principle to us in our life, like we're flexing, mm-hmm. we're stretching, and sometimes it's under absolute horrific pain and pressure. Mm-hmm. But there is that give.
Yeah.
And I'm so fascinated with the choices that you've made along the journey to really look and investigate and try to dissect these terms: evil, justice. What's going to make this better? What's going to fix this?
Yeah.
And there are limits to that. Mm-hmm. Some things that just aren't possible. But then we have, you said cosmic earlier, like, so mystically, what can I do to feel, mm-hmm. to heal, to help my loved ones heal and process? And we have an urgency as a society, I think, to hurry and get to that point.
Yeah.
To check a box. Mm-hmm. And I so want to push back against it. As a human, I understand that. Mm-hmm. I don't want to feel this anymore. I don't want to be in this limbo. But our souls and our hearts need that.
Yeah.
That time. Mm-hmm. And there's not you're not turning an egg timer or something like that. And it's like, okay, well, let's start it. And once I get to the end of this timer, this countdown, then I'm done. Mm-hmm. Not at all.
Yeah. And in my naivety, I often thought that that's what people who are devoutly religious got, was a fast track to that peace. When you give it to God, or when you're able to give it to whatever your belief system is, whatever your deity is. Man, I wanted that. Like I wanted to be able to pray and find peace. And I think along the journey, what I've learned is that I just don't have a practice of that same meditation, where that's what prayer is to me, is you're meditating on something, you're seeking answers to something. The answers are always going to come from within, whether you define that as your external higher source or whatever. That's where it comes from. I just don't have a dedicated practice to that. So I realized when I talk to them, when I talk to Kai and when I talk to Ratch, my sister and nephew, like, that's what I'm doing is I'm meditating. It's the same thing. I'm putting my prayer out there. And that does help find peace. That is, like, I'm starting to understand that. I just think that my journey is going to take a little bit longer because I didn't have that practice. I didn't grow up with that practice. So, say your prayers. Because really it's just a practice in mindfulness, being present with who you are, projecting what you want into whatever your future self is going to be. And then eventually you're going to step into that. You will embody that, I think, if you make that a practice. I just have yet to do that. And I'm in the middle of it. So I'll get there. But I do this kind of, I'm going to bring it up now because it feels right. But I learned a lot about what I think people talk about when they talk about heaven and infinity and like the universe through like psychedelic therapies, through ketamine infusion and psychotherapies through that, which, I mean, it's the most profound thing I've ever experienced, not only therapeutically, but just as a human being. Just how cool is it that we have keys that can unlock these places where we can navigate, you know, our existence and who we are and what we are. But in that, I had this experience of infinity where I knew that my physical self was not who I am, not what I am. What I am is different than this. So much so that I got into a practice of taking big, deep breaths when I was in the middle of an infusion, just to remind myself that I'm still connected to my physical self. Like, the disassociation is real and it's profound. But I was able to get this overwhelming sense of love. That's all that was left in this place. This understanding of connectedness, and that when you hear time is linear, I mean, people say that. I don't know what that means. I couldn't explain to you what it means. But in this place, I understood what that means. Like, everything is happening right now. I don't know if it's different planes. I don't know if it's different energy fields. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's different universes or alternate. I don't know what it is. But I knew that my sister hugged me. I felt it. I sought that and I found it and I felt it. And I had this deep peace in there because I understood the life stream. Like, the life stream is this thing that's ever constant and ever flowing and ever moving. It is dynamic. It always is, such as life. And then there are these moments, and I think you can get there through meditation. This is what I've heard. The monks do it, and people in practice do it. But having this key, like for me, it was the ketamine, to be able to step out of the life stream and step onto the bank of it and watch it. Like, to be there to experience, like, holy shit, this is what it is. Whatever this is what it is. And it gave me an understanding of the people I grew up next to, religious people, the LDS faith, and just faithful people in general. I think that's what they're talking about. I've found a bridge between my understanding and what they've been saying this whole time, or at least I think I do. And even more, I guess it kind of sounds cocky to say, but in some way I feel like I have a better understanding than a lot of those people about what that place is like. Because I think in earnest, like, you can get to a certain point, but when your soul is broken, something about that door opens up differently. And you know, that, I think that's where people's testimony comes from. This is mine. And it's because of that, that I found this. And yeah, I going back to just prayer, I think it's valuable, and I envy that now. I envy it now that I didn't have that practice, because I imagine how much further along I would be and how much better of a facilitator of these practices, or even just a steward of information I'd be if I did have that. So, working on it.
I love this. I love that you're giving me the chills. You're making me misty-eyed, and on so many different talking points that we could keep discussing.
I'm tangential, man. I told you.
It's not even that. It's just that interconnectedness of everything. You know, before we hit record on this, for those that don't know, there's a sign up on the wall in my office that says the word gather. And right beneath it, there are two definitions of that word. And a mutual friend of ours was owned a home goods store here in Utah, and I walked into that store to visit him as they were kind of first opening it up, and I saw that on the wall, and I got I got tearful. It just hit me, that concept of connection and coming together. And in those definitions, it references people coming from scattered places. And I think so much of the difference that we have and how we are scattered in so many ways, and we allow ourselves to be disconnected and disjointed. But there are things that bring us back together, and I'll invite my clients and people that come to visit me. I usually say my friends. This is a friend, and whether it's a buddy that we go to breakfast with or played ball with or whatever, or if it's my client, nobody needs to know. I invite people to pray. And sometimes it's like, well, I don't pray. Hold on a minute. I'm not telling you to fold your arms and bow your head or get on your knees or something like this. Prayer, in my opinion, what I was taught long ago, prayer is when we speak to our God. Prayer is when we speak to our higher power, whatever that may be. If it's a being, a deity, if it's nature, if it's Mother Earth, whatever it is, the interconnectedness of the human race, whatever that spirituality is. The prayer is me speaking. Meditation is me listening. It's that pondering. It's that pausing and feeling. And often there's a disconnect from the mind and the heart, and we want them to be separate things, even to the point where we might say, I feel like you don't like this. I feel like you don't like me. I feel like you want to, so whatever it is. We're actually, we're doing ourselves a disservice by saying my thoughts are feelings, that my thoughts are emotions. When we can get a little, maybe it's semantics in some ways, but it's getting really intentional with it, saying, I'm feeling, so that example of, if I feel like you don't like me, I'm feeling unliked, I'm feeling unwanted, or I'm feeling inadequate, I'm feeling not good enough, I'm feeling gross, I'm feeling whatever it is, as opposed to that thought process. And when we can go in and really define what those things mean, I believe it helps us to understand ourselves more. Absolutely. And understand what's going on here.
I think for me, you talked about parts earlier, and I love parts. That's the work I'm doing, is parts. And I think that it resonates with me because I can see that it's a part of me that is doing that. Like for me, I'm very logical about these things. So I do say all the time, and I'm a salesperson. So to me, the 4 agreements, being impeccable with your word. Like when I use a word, I want it to invoke that reaction. So when I say I feel, I already know you can't argue with my feeling. That's why I said I feel. So you can't argue with me. But for me, I can logically, my part is so logical. My part, this part that stands in between, like stands right here, that he disconnects, or he's the gatekeeper for my heart and my head connection.
Yeah.
He can logically and rationalize anything with the best of them. Like I can bullshit on a high level because my part is really good at that. So I think that to me is what it is for a lot of people. Like you got to have that relationship with yourself, and it's a part of you, but really, like if you're not a parts person, then it's that inner child. It is you. It's you that is keeping that from happening. And I think having that practice, that's what I do. Is when I meditate, I talk to my part. I talk to that part. I not only have a good relationship or a relationship with that one part. I know there are other ones, but it's hard work. Parts work is hard work. Like you'll say, I want to talk to that part. And then you sit there and you're like, am I talking to him? Is he listening? But like just having faith that what you're doing is, and I do often feel better when I talk to that part. So do yourself that favor. I would say is recognize that it's probably just a part of you that's keeping you from making that connection. And me saying it, I mean, it's not just as easy as paying the gatekeeper and going through, making that heart-mind connection. But hang in there, have faith, make that connection with yourself, because that I think is where the real growth is going to happen. Because for me, he's keeping me safe, right? He's keeping me from making a dumb decision or looking stupid, or, he's guarding me from embarrassing myself. That's what it is to me, because I lack the courage or the self-confidence or the self-belief to do the things or say the things or, advise on the things that I think, because he's like, it's better just not. Like, you don't need to.
Right.
Yeah. So I don't.
I think there are so many mechanisms that the brain has either been wired for or has adopted over our evolution, not just human evolution, but each individual person.
Mm-hmm.
We evolve on our own plane, on our own, I don't know math and geometry and calculus terms, but axes and these different paths and even speeds, For example, just as an illustration, when a young person draws a house, even though I'm from Phoenix, there's always a chimney on that house. Right. Nobody needs a chimney where I'm from. Here in Utah, yeah, we do. Even we're in May, and I can smell the campfire, or the, what do you call it, fireplaces?
Burning stove.
Yeah, I love it. It's a very, most of the time it's very pleasant.
Mm-hmm.
Some people don't get the good logs. Anyway, we build that house according to like what we've learned, and so my little chimney there has smoke coming out of it. Mm-hmm. And the smoke is not a straight line to the sky.
No.
That's not even straight, but a straight line to the sky. It's some curlicues, right?
Yep.
And so we use that analogy for our progress in life. And even those curlicues as we draw, when we apply that to life, it's not uniform. Mm-hmm. It's not equal, right? When we look at it, it's like, well, okay, here's the next one, and then there's a downturn, and then there's this way, and it's squiggle lines and everything like that.
Yeah.
And that's kind of part of that evolution of our lives, is figuring out, I want that trajectory to be in this direction, but there's a whole lot of stops.
But the path
and yeah,
is different.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Some detours.
I love that analogy too, because I can drill into anything and make it mean something, but like even when I envision that, like the distance from your body that your arm is going to change, and like the angle of your hand, even these little things they're automatic, and they are necessary in you drawing that curlicue and making it a curlicue. I mean, if your hand doesn't move, it is a straight line. Mm-hmm. But those dynamic little things that change everything are important but necessary to get to up here, and they are just part of the path. And it's just those little things that could make it good or not, right? That's the difference between me and like an artist, is those lines just come together better. Somehow you draw a T-Rex and it looks like a T-Rex, and I draw, I don't know, a box figure with teeth and short arms.
looks
nothing like a dinosaur.
Little snowman guy.
Yeah, but it's just those, like, you get better at it. You get better at it. You just... Like I said, I can drill down into anything and make it mean something.
Well, this idea of those parts of me, and taking them out and putting them, on the table and examining them, saying, okay, I see you, I see you, I see you, I see you. And then taking the time to get to know those parts of us. Mm-hmm. And there's a bumper sticker that I saw when I was younger. I haven't seen one for a while, but the coexist bumper sticker. And how I would love for somebody to create one. So this is an invitation if somebody's good with bumper stickers and graphic design. But the different parts of me. Mm-hmm. And as I say me, I mean you and me and you, and everybody in our lobby and people that are passing by, out on Main Street, all of us, but those parts of us. So the little boy, that got stung by a stingray in the ocean in Mexico when I was younger. That little boy who was hurt at a young age by somebody else. That little boy who hurt his back. Mm-hmm. That little boy who met Nick at age 16, mm-hmm. Or whatever, sophomore year, who played ball. And as I say little, I don't necessarily mean physically or in terms of stature, but that little
that less mature part of you.
Yeah. But that part of me that's a father, that part of me that's a husband, that part of me that is a son, a brother, a friend, an employer, a neighbor, a leader or follower. That part of me that's afraid, that part of me that has courage, getting those pieces out and kind of configuring an image of each of those. And some of them it's a tiny baby. Some of them it's, 40 years old with no hair and those kinds of things,
That's tough work.
And having that idea of coexist, like how can I invite all those parts of me in and not let the hurt parts rule? Not let the parts of me that have darkness, that have pain, be in charge. They have their seat at the table. They matter. They're important. We have to acknowledge that they exist, but I don't have to operate under their under that pain. But I also can't. When we talk about our goals and the things that we want for our future and our spiritual beliefs and ideals and those kinds of things, we can't defer to them completely and pretend like the other parts don't exist. We can't sweep them away or under the rug and go, just don't look there. Don't look. What is that? Wizard of Oz, don't look behind the curtain. They exist and they matter. And by hiding them away, we only do a disservice to us, And I was thinking earlier as you've talked about this portion of your journey of your life, we have a tendency to, I use this phrase in therapy, like distractions and deflections are bad, basically, but delay is good. So it's the 3 Ds, right? Delay is good. Well, what's the difference there? The distraction is, I don't want to talk about this. I don't want to think about this. And what we're suggesting is ever. I want to pretend like that's not a thing. The delay is good. Yeah, I know I need to do this. I'm not ready right now. I'm gonna push this down. It's not the idea of kicking the can down the road, like whenever, but it's like maybe next week or in terms of therapy office, next session or the next lunch or the next dinner, or the next time I have a family reunion or whatever the detail is. But it's in this moment, I'm not prepared.
Right.
I'm not ready. I'm not safe even. And I want to honor that idea, that there's a big difference there, that I know I need to do this work, but I need to set the stage first so that I'm ready.
Yeah. One of my favorite songs of all time is A Hard Rain's Gonna Fall. Have you heard that?
No.
Bob Dylan song.
Bob Dylan. Okay.
Bob Dylan. To me, it's probably top 3 songs of all time ever written. But there's a line in there, and he says, "I'll know my song well before I start singing." And I that resonates with me, and I think it aligns with what you're saying, because I've loved that line, and I've always felt like I'm inadequate to this point. So to me, it's like I'm climbing that mountain, and when I get to the top, I'll reflect so all souls can see it. That's another line in his song. And I'll scream from the mountain so all souls can see it. So I'm not there yet, but like I'm getting there. I'm getting to that point because I want to do this more. I want to talk more about it. I want to act with courage or before courage. Act before courage and let courage catch up. I'll get better at this. But to me, that's intentional living. Like I'm also keeping myself accountable to something other than my own head, which is where it's easy for me to hide. And I think a lot of for us to hide in isolation. It's just in isolation. I think a lot that probably won't work. But if I were to be in a group and share my ideas, we could make it work, whatever that is.
Yeah.
So I'm working towards knowing my song well enough to sing it from the mountain so everybody can hear it. But that's one of my bumper stickers is I'll know my song well before I start singing.
That's beautiful. Music is, for me, so healing. And sometimes it pricks the wound. Sometimes it causes that. And I was sharing before, we started recording this, that there are those times where I'm like, oh, I don't want to feel this. Like, no, but I need to. And so we'll do things to invite that emotion to the surface.
Yeah, I have playlists for that.
Yeah, yeah. I've got one. It's called Therapy Office, like the waiting room music. That's not. We don't want elevator. I'm not interested in elevator music, but what's kind of safe in the lobby. And then I think there's one called like Therapy Deep, and it's like our therapy process. And it's like this is gonna make stuff real. Mm-hmm. This is gonna bring.
It's like tones, or is it songs?
No, songs. Now we could even talk. This will be a future chat, but binaural beats and the music, the tones that will invoke different emotions and things within the brain, within the body. Mm-hmm. So incredible to me.
I listen to like, I think it's 528 hertz to go to sleep. And I start my day, not every day, but I'll start my days with a 20-minute affirmation, like just positive affirmations from an Australian dude. It's just the best thing to listen to in the morning.
Yeah.
Or just the frequencies, the different frequencies. I love it.
No, I love it. There's a workshop, a mindfulness introduction that I've done, and I pulled that from the Meditation Society of Australia. And when I learned to meditate, it was literally listening to them reading guided visualizations. And there was something about the accent that I'd close my eyes and I was on the beach. Mm-hmm. I was just, it was just incredible. And I think had I listened to had Ben Stein taught me how to meditate, I'd be like, oh my goodness, this is the worst thing ever.
Nobody's meditating if Ben Stein's the leader.
So.
You're just sleeping.
So, And, I will say sleep is just fine. In those meditations, when I first started doing them, I'd tell people, don't go to sleep. You don't need to go to sleep. You need to hear this. And then I learned, if you're that tired that you fall asleep during this, you needed it. Mm-hmm. You need the rest. Mm-hmm. And the subconscious or unconscious parts of your mind will still be perceiving whatever beach or mountain or desert or whatever forest is going on here that's coming out of my mouth. Mm-hmm. You'll still receive that. Yeah. But you'll get the rest that you need. Yeah. At least some of it, know. And so these ideas that we have, this is how it's supposed to go. Stop. Yeah. Take a step back and allow that flow. Yeah. Allow that journey to take place. We've got to keep ourselves safe in that. We can't do it alone. We need some resources and skills and everything that way. Mm-hmm. But man, growth is there. Yeah. Brother, you're incredible. Thank you. Thank you for being here. I know my hope is that we'll reconvene. I want to do this more and have more chats and talk more about the healing journey. And, I won't go down the list of the intriguing things to me, but both parts of the pain and even more so what you've done since then and how you guys are healing. And I imagine our audience is going to be curious about those things too. Yeah. And go ahead. I
want to say too, so I listen to a lot of podcasts that, trying to find parallels, trying to find people who have really gone through loss and grief and suffering and are trying to find their way out. And part of it, a lot of it I resonate with. But it seems to me that, and maybe this is just my perception, but they're somewhere that I'm not. They've come to a point in the path where they're better than I am in their healing. At least they're more healed than I am. And I mean, a lot of times that's disheartening. So I just want it to be clear that I am nowhere near the end of this. I am just starting this journey, and it's gotten better. I'm more hopeful. I'm things are more creative. Things are coming out of me now where they weren't before. It was just a lot of hopelessness. And I still have bouts of that. I'm sort of in a low period right now, even, but opportunity is there, but I'm nowhere near where I project that those other people are. So for whoever needs to hear that, just, the story's not over, and keep swinging. Just one foot in front of the other, brick by brick. I
want to just make a comment about that Me too. Like nobody's at that destination. Tell me if I'm wrong, somebody that might find this. I haven't met you then. And that's no knock on anyone else. I'm not judging or analyzing somebody else. And so maybe I should only speak for myself, but I'm still learning.
Yeah.
I've had some pain, and I've done a lot of healing around that. I've done some therapy around that, and done some inner work and parts work and those kinds of things.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't imagine I'm anywhere near that.
Yeah. And I imagine some people are like, I'm getting close to that.
Yeah.
And maybe what I'm speaking to is more of that piece of me that's in those people that doesn't see that, you know, that it really is no light at the end of the tunnel, because I've been there too. And there are days, I think, where I do this and I just kind of, you know, I block the light at the end of the tunnel, like on purpose.
Yeah.
And I don't know why. I couldn't tell you why, but I do feel like there are some days where I do that, where it's just like, I just want to be morose today. Like, I'm going to feel bad for me today. And then of course I always feel worse for doing that. Mm-hmm. You know, I come equipped with, you know, my shame attribute is super high. I'm in the 90s, so I do that real well. But yeah, I'm just talking to those people that it's more for them that, yeah, I don't see this ending. It will. Yeah, it does.
Yeah, I believe that firmly. I believe that so much. Not only for myself, but for the people that come in, and it's so frequent that I see somebody and I think the world of them, and I get to know them, and I discover, or they'll share with me that they feel like garbage. Mm-hmm. They feel so poorly about themselves, and I'm going, what is that level of disconnect? What are we not seeing here? And you've talked about that, mm-hmm. that gatekeeper, right? Mm-hmm. And I don't think we carry around, most people, I haven't seen this happen. People don't carry a full length mirror around their day-to-day life. They're not seeing how they're presenting. They're not seeing how they're interacting with other people. We're perceiving everyone else. Mm-hmm. And so I think there's a tendency for us to have this higher expectation and to compare and contrast and go, well, I'm not good enough because look at this person, or look at where they're at. Mm-hmm. And I think often they're doing the same with us, going, wow, look at how great he is. Look how strong he is, mm-hmm. you know? Yeah. And again, I referenced this earlier. You know, I run out into the community here in Utah County, and when somebody knows who you are, they, oh my gosh, yeah, this and that, or Jess, oh my gosh, you know?
Yeah.
And I know you guys know that, but I don't think there's not ego there going, look how amazing we are.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, not at all.
But I want to bring that up because in the healing process, I don't have to be on some pedestal. I don't have to be anything. Mm-hmm. It's here I am, and this is what I'm doing today, you know, and
yeah,
it's part of the process.
Mm-hmm.
It's part of the process. There's most people know what PTSD is. Most people know post-traumatic stress disorder, and that it's a thing, that's a diagnosis, and
I think people have heard of it.
Yeah.
I think knowing is a different experience.
Yes. I agree with that.
Yeah. People throw around PTSD, and then when you, like my experience for the 2.5 years immediately following this is unlike anything I've, you know, it's hard to explain what it does to you. You don't know why your body's doing something or your mind is doing something, or it's just all of these things that you can't explain rationally why you're doing or why you're feeling or how come you can't get out of it. I think to me, that was my experience with the stress disorder, you know, post-trauma. That it was just, I'm still very traumatized and a very anxious person, which is different than, you know, the Nick before 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Much different. But it's the new, it is what it is now. But yeah, you were saying about PTSD. I want to hear more.
Well, it's who and where you are now. And we know I'll shout out to my favorite movie. It's called Peaceful Warrior. And I showed you the word paradox. It's on my wrist. And it's one of the 3 rules of life from Peaceful Warrior. But in that, part of that concept is it's kind of an invitation or reminder. It says, know that nothing stays the same. And I personalize that. I individualize that to mean that I have the potential to lose the wonderful things. And I also have the potential to lose the horrific things, meaning letting them go, moving forward from them. And so, yeah, I think a lot of people have heard of PTSD and know that it's an acronym, but living it, experiencing it is a completely different thing. In my quest, part of my journey, as you were talking about the worry and the anxiety and the fear of something else happening, I was in a space like that some years ago, and kind of joking was like, there's got to be there's PTSD, and yeah, I've got that, but there's got to be a pre-TSD or something. And I started Googling it, and it's true, there is. Pre-traumatic stress disorder. It's anxiety based.
Okay.
A paralyzing fear that horrific things are going to happen. And as I'm hearing you share, and as I've gotten to know other parts of you, and it's okay to have both of those things. It's scary. It's really hard. It's unfair, and all of those things. But to acknowledge that I have these symptoms as a result of what's gone on already. And I also have these symptoms because of what might happen. And very often they're linked. Very often they're connected, but they can be very separate as well.
Yeah.
Equally and also very differently paralyzing, though. And when I say paralyzing, I don't mean I just don't want to get out of bed today and it's kind of, I probably better. Okay. It's life and death often.
Yeah.
Severe.
I walk the catastrophe road all the time.
Yeah.
All the time. And I think for me, the fear of loss started way before that. In going through counseling and really talking through things. There was a time in my childhood where I did something dumb. Like we lived in these duplexes, and my friend had moved out of one. And so me and another friend moved into it while they were redoing it, did some stupid kid stuff, but vandalized this house. I don't know if it's related, but my whole life I've believed that because we were evicted shortly after that out of where we lived. And so to me, they were linked. To me, what I did caused my family to be kicked out of that house, and then we had to go live somewhere else. So there's that, and then, not having a dad and not, there's a lot of things that I've learned now that my fear is based in these things that I've learned, that I've lost these things. And now that I have things that I really care about and have had experience with things that I really care about being taken forcefully, somebody imposing something on you that you didn't choose or ask for, loss became very real to me, tangibly real. It wasn't just this idea. Yeah. I lost a lot, and so that's my struggle now, is that I have this crippling fear, pre-TSD. I don't like that term, but it's descriptive in that way.
Yeah.
But very much so. And it is anxiety based. Again, I've never been an anxious person, but this is a different phase of life.
Yeah. I'll tell you this other thing. I love this neurofeedback stuff. It's something that we've been studying more recently here at this office, and I did my brain map, and I don't know, as a therapist, I kind of have a sick, twisted humor. I have a little bit of sarcasm, a little bit of darkness that ties into that, and it's me. I come from a family where we're irreverent at funerals. We're irreverent in our own pain. We kind of mock our own pain because it seems to, and friends, we're not suggesting this is healthy, but it seems to take some of the bite out of that pain. And for a long time, I've said I'm self-diagnosed ADHD. Self-diagnosed and unmedicated ADHD because of tangential thoughts, inattentiveness, distractibility, and all those things. And I did my brain map, and I looked at the results and went through that with my mentor, and was kind of worried about things and what's going on here. And there's no ADHD. There is the inattentiveness. There is the distractibility. there is that tangential nature. It's all anxiety based. And like you just said, I don't have anxiety. I know what anxiety looks like in my clients, in my loved ones, in those kinds of things. I don't have that. Yeah, I do.
Yeah. I saw a comedian, he did a bit about anxiety, and he was talking about him and his wife and how his wife is not an anxious person. And he's like, I didn't think I was an anxious person. I'm easygoing. He's like, have any of you made that mistake your whole life, thinking you were just being polite, but really you were just anxious? And he uses this scenario of getting off a plane, and how his wife is just sitting there, and she's looking at her phone, whatever. And he's like looking at the people down the line. He's like, when that seat gets up, then I'm going to get up and I'm going to get my bag, and I'm not going to waste, because he's like, in my mind, if I dawdle for a second and if I hesitate for 2 minutes, somebody's going to punch me in the back of the head. Like, that's just what's going to happen in my mind. My wife is not even thinking about it. Not even worried about it. Yeah. She's just like, what are you doing? No, we'll just get our bag he's like, I didn't realize. He's like, my whole life, I planned out all these things, trying to be polite and trying to make sure that I wasn't infringing on anybody's time or even their convenience. And really, it's anxiety based. And for me, that's what it is. You know, I've always been nice. But I do think it was based in some sort of anxiety. Like, I've always been a pleaser. I've always been noticed for only doing good things whenever I did good things. So it was always, how do I do good things? How do I please people? And I didn't realize that until just recently. So I don't think I was an anxious person, but I realize now I probably was a little bit, and it's just been magnified with trauma now.
Yeah. Or even perhaps magnified, yes. And also perhaps onset is a word that I've used where, okay, we've kind of got these pre-existing things, but there's not the event or mechanism that's occurred to bring that out. But when those experiences happen, it brings it out and can, yes, absolutely magnifies those kinds of things. And, you know, we have these ideas of what something looks like. And so when we have something similar, but it doesn't look like that, so it must be no. Or something else happens where we go, I've got these symptoms, and we scroll, you know, an unnamed social media app, and we hear somebody talking about X, Y, and Z. We go, that's what I've got. That's it. You know, when the reality is so many diagnoses look almost identical. There are a few things that differentiate them. Where treatments can be very different for them. And so we might be self-medicating in some ways in a grand, you know, broad spectrum way of speaking, and thinking that we're taking care of it, we're trying to get better, and we're making it worse.
Well, and I just read a thing about, so I love Andrew Huberman.
Yes.
You're familiar?
Yeah.
I love Andrew Huberman. He's like my go-to guy, right? And everything he says, it's like, man, that makes a whole lot of sense. He came out with some things recently talking about cannabis and just the mechanisms of action with cannabis, and cannabis scholars lit him up. Like, nothing that you're saying is making sense. Like, it's not based in science or reality at all. That crushed me, because I look at Andrew Huberman as like, if he says it, he's done the research. He has a team backing him. Like, they've looked into it. And so this is, it's not gospel, of course. Yeah. Like, things are always, you know, we're going to learn more, but like, this is a pretty good guidepost to go by. And I only say that to say that, like, I would trust most of what he says, but also, this is just another example of, like, no matter how good your source is, no matter how much faith you have in whatever this is that you're getting your information from, we've diluted the water a lot. We've muddied the water a lot. We're overstimulated and overinformed, and people, you know, in the race to create content and monetize and grab attention and shares, because that's currency anymore. Yeah. So absolutely, it makes sense. But in the rush to do that, oftentimes we're skipping over those, you know, like, do we really know what we're talking about? And I hope to never, ever be looked at as any kind of sage on anything. Like, I don't want anybody really to, because I'd hate to lead somebody astray. You know, I'd hate to give somebody bad advice. So just, I guess stay off the internet, I don't know what else to say. There's because we're going to go look for it. I'm going to self-diagnose every time, and I'm going to look for my trusted sources, and I'm going to read that and be like, well, I know what I need to know. But,
I remember in school doing a project. I'll try to be somewhat vague. I remember doing a research project. I had a thesis, and I think you ask anybody in the general public, like, this kind of intervention with this population, do you think it's helpful? Will this help these people? Everyone's going to say yes. Yeah. Like, that makes all the sense in the world. And we collected data. We were analyzing our data, and we couldn't prove it. And we went to the professor and kind of like, we know it's true, but like, it's not, the data's not showing it. And she looks at everything, and, well, you need to, we'd used surveys and questionnaires, and she said, well, you need to just get rid of these ones, discard this pile of surveys, and then you'll be able to prove it. And I'm already kind of a skeptical, like, too good to be true kind of guy, cynical a little bit, trauma survivor, I don't know. And that taught me a lot. So when I hear statistics, when I hear this is what the science says, I go, well, who paid for it? Who paid for the research? What are their motives? What are their intentions? What's genuine? I also do kind of that intuition check. Now, again, I'm not suggesting I know everything or when presented with options would be able to pick what's true universally. But when someone's saying the sky is pink, it's like, just because a talking head's telling me that, am I going to... Yeah, I guess I'm wrong. I'm using my intuition going, well, that doesn't feel right. And I've got evidence. And so I'm not suggesting that we also discard that immediately, but maybe even look a little further. Well, where's this coming from? What's that perspective and why? And is it a section of the population because of X factor or variable that is true for, So I get really excited around that, around this is what the research shows, because wait 3 years and the research is going to show the opposite, So I can be frustrated over that. And I can also go, well, just kind of deal with it.
It is what it is. There are things at play that just are anymore, and they change, but the wheels of change turn very slowly, and it takes time. I had the same sort of experience after the murder trial, where for a week I watched this back and forth, and I realized that it was a game. It's a game. There's no set rules. Like, people think the law is what it is, but it's all open to interpretation. And whoever plays the game best is usually who wins. Like, if you have the LeBron James of Virginia Commonwealth Law on your team, you got a pretty good shot of winning whichever one you go in. And it dawned on me when, after the fact, so the lawyers took us out for dinner after the trial ended. And in there, they're talking shop, as you would. Like, when I asked you, what do therapists talk about when they get together? These guys were just talking lawyer. They were talking shop. And they were talking about how there was a couple of instances, but where they snuck in this precedent or this example or something. And the defense caught one of them, but they didn't catch another one. Like, it snuck in to kind of bolster their case. And like, it just dawned on me, like, they're just playing a game. It's all strategy. It's not point counterpoint. It's like there's this dance of law, and it's like that everywhere. We give these institutions and these credos and these imagined rules that we've all sort of abided by, this sanctity, this like untouchable air of divinity. They're almost perfect, but at the end of the day, we're just people, and people are tribal and looking to be reciprocal with those that are helping them. And if there's one team against the other, well, the other team is the other, so we're going to do whatever it takes for our team to win.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter if it's a murder trial, if it's science that is going to affect millions of people potentially. It doesn't matter. We're trying to win. at the end of it.
Yeah. Yeah. What is the willingness that we will sacrifice truth for victory?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And some concessions make sense,
Sure.
like white lies. You sacrifice truth for it could even be, you could even chalk it up as power being the currency. Like you score one power point in the relationship by conceding that, or whatever it is. But it's all the same game.
Yeah,
it's all the same.
Yeah, I'm thinking of all the examples. Like, honey, how does this dress look? Or like, do you mind if my mom comes and lives with us? Or do you like all those things? I'm blessed with the greatest mother-in-law in the world, by the way. But it's like. But it's those experiences that we have. I think the greatest stand-up comedians talk about their life, share their stories. It's what makes it funny. Mm-hmm. It's relatable.
Relatable,
you get it, And my favorite one, there's some cynicism. There's some like grumpy, like he's very deadpan. His name's Nate Bargatze, and he's blown up. He's gotten very famous, I think, recently. But the way he presents it like scratches that grumpy itch that's within us, but then it humorizes everything. Yeah. And so it's like, I'm getting the best of both worlds. And earlier, kind of talking about a little bit of coping skills, I can't tell you the number of times that a session is over and they're like, what? It's like, how do I stop this now? Like we have more to do. And it's like, but I can't. And so I'll give that. I want you to go to Netflix and I want you to look up Nate Bargatze and I want you to watch that. He's got like 3 specials. I just want you to watch them. Mm-hmm. Because it's not pie in the sky, pretend like this doesn't exist. It scratches that itch of like some of real life struggles and frustrations, but we're going to giggle around it a little bit. And his pain is not everyone else's pain. You can delay, right, by observing and experiencing whatever he's talking about. Yeah. And then when the time is right and it's safe, I'm going to pick up my own things again. I'm going to pick up my own story and circumstances. Yeah. And
I like that.
Going back to, man, I remember one very vivid conversation downstairs in the weight room at high school, and you were talking about Jess. And really? There was it's a cute story, and I'll probably tell her, off the air. It was adorable. But I remember very vividly of you talking about how you felt about her, and you, even back then, were like, it's me. Like, what does she see in me? Kind of a thing. And I remember, I didn't go home with you. I didn't see you as you went about your day. But I have a vivid memory of who you were in high school. And even having played ball with you 10th grade year in the G-Wing gym to senior year, when, let's be honest, you won us the region title. It was you and Bills, just lobbing the ball up to you. And so I saw some of that transformation, but I remember vividly, you speaking highly of her and kind of like, what? It's just me. Like, she's on this pedestal kind of a thing.
I still feel like that.
And I wanted to kind of go there like, yeah, man, you're a lucky guy, but guess what? She's so lucky. Nick. She's so lucky to have you. And I guarantee you, if she was the one sitting here today, she'd be saying the same thing. Yeah. And we have this tendency to think, man, I married up. But so did they. Because if you see her on this pedestal, but you're not up there with her, you're not there too, then it doesn't work. Logically, we just toy with that. We just tease that out a little bit. Like, well, then what would she see in you if you weren't actually up there too? Yeah. And so you've got to recognize it as well. You've got to see who you are. And yes, we're not suggesting the grandiose, here I am in all of my glory, but there is so much goodness there. Yeah. And I really admire and love and appreciate who you are and where you're going in this world, because it's helping so many other people. It's inspiring other people.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. That's kind of the goal, and that is to just help other people. But that's very much a process ongoing for me. Yeah. because I do, like one of the sayings that my therapist told me was step into your power, like step into your power, be who everybody sees you as and not who you see you as. And that, like, that's hard for me. I don't know how to do that. I don't know, unless I'm given, like, sports was the perfect outlet for me. I knew I could do that. I loved being competitive, and there was a group of people that were going to show up and do the same thing I was doing. I can do that every day of the week. But if I don't have that, it's hard for me to feel any sort of leadership over myself. You know, I need to be competitive and contributing to somebody else. Otherwise, to me, it's almost not like, it's not motivating enough for me. Just, I don't know why I'm wired like that, but that's what I need and want most. And so I'd like to see myself as that. And I think that's where I'm at in the journey, is recognizing that I'm not, my perception does not align with everybody else's perception of me. And I'm flattered and grateful that people see me like that. And I really, like, I want more than anything to see myself like that. I mean, who wouldn't, you know? People say nice things about you and say that you have helped or inspired them in some way. Like, I'd love to feel like that all the time. I just don't yet.
No.
So, but I do, it means a lot. And I think the more I hear it, and I think what I need wins, you know, like this to me is a win. Being able to just talk at length about things. And, I mean, I don't know what you had in mind for what this was going to be, but, like this helps me kind of define which direction I'm going, like where I'm going to go and how I'm going to get there. It's a good first step. So this, for me, I think I just need to do this and then maybe present the story in a better way so it's more impactful and heard by more people. You know, I think that's the next step, is trying to figure that out. And that will get me closer to, I think, stepping into alignment with how other people see me. But I haven't earned it yet, is a lot of what I feel like.
And we can spend some time us arguing over that and everything, but we won't right now. But there's a purpose.
Yeah.
You have a purpose. And I appreciate and admire that you're fulfilling that purpose, that you're seeking answers and you're seeking guidance. Often we're like, I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do, but I'm open. And I'll shout out one last time my favorite movie. And Nick Nolte says it. There's he says, in his gruff voice, I wasn't sure what we'd find. I never really am. And it speaks to a conversation like this. We have kind of some ideas, a couple of dry erase markers in my pocket and a whiteboard there. And if I'm prepared here, if I'm in tune and we connect, it's productive. And we might, we'll go back and listen and go, oh, we started talking about this and then we went over to this topic.
Yeah.
Okay. Who cares? If nothing else,
make a note of it and then let's explore it.
Yeah. If nothing else, it's healing for me. If nothing else, I guarantee you there's one person out there, one little starfish that got tossed back into the ocean that feels inspired, that was taken care of today, that will connect with the message.
I hope so.
And that's I say to my people, that's my payday. I run into clients at the grocery store a couple years later, and they'll come up and here are my children and here's my spouse and here's what's going on in my life, and that is the greatest payday. We're not talking monetary exchange, but I did something.
Yeah,
I was a catalyst. I held space for somebody. I showed compassion, or I listened, or I pushed them in some direction. Said, hold on a minute. You're backing up toward this cliff. You don't see that danger. You need to stop. Slow down for a minute. I'm right here. That's what we're doing. And I think this, you sharing, it's such a great calling. It's an important calling, and I appreciate that you're stepping into that role to share that pain. we've talked a little separately off air about projects and ideas and things that you want to do and be involved in. For a listener, if they feel so inspired by your story, is there a method for them to connect with you or follow you or be part of the journey? Or is that not set up?
It's not set up, but I have ideas. Yes. What I'd like to have happen is I have this idea of a nonprofit called Strong Friends. And I think I've always wanted a strong friend. I think a strong friend is those people who reach out to you, even when they don't need to. Now, how awesome is it to just get a text from somebody that you haven't talked to in like 3 months, and they're just like, "How's it going?" Tyler's great at that. Fredrickson. He'll shoot me a message like, "Hey, how's the month been? How's the week been? What's the rundown? What are your wins or whatever?" Just out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Like, how cool is that? But I know now that everybody is dealing with something. And I have this belief that the springboard to change is having somebody to talk to about it. And it takes a strong friend to be able to just show up for somebody, to fight through that discomfort, even thinking about showing up for somebody that you know is struggling. Or I always think of it like when we were kids, just go knock on somebody's door and see if they can play. Like, just go do that. Why don't we do that anymore? Because how cool is it when that happens? Obviously, somebody will show up sometimes and you're like, I just wanted to chill at home. But you're never going to look back at them dropping by and be like, I wish they didn't come by and just shoot the shit with me for 20 minutes. I sure wish I could get that time back. Never. So this idea of strong friends, and I don't even know like what modality it is other than just building a community, just having people that recognize that that's a good endeavor and they want to be a part of it. So outside of that, I should do something with it, so I'll put it out there. But I do Utah Hot Springs is my Instagram page at Utah Hot Springs, just because there's a whole bunch of reasons why I love hot springs, but I found peace there. I found serenity. There's a reverence in going to, hot water coming out of the ground, especially when it's freezing, is, it's spiritual in a lot of ways. So I love that. Chasing steam. My personal Instagram is Ozoology, Ozuology. Obviously I'm deep, so, I'm studying me all the time. That's why I named it that. But really, I don't have anything formal set up. I hope to get there someday. But if you want to send me messages, I suck at getting back. But please know that I will try.
Along the way with the journey, as you take those next steps, we'll share that.
Yeah.
And I'm sure we'll have episode 2 and episode 3 coming to you guys in the distant future. But thank you for tuning into this episode of the Heal the Hurt podcast. Nick, thank you for being here too.
Thank you for having me.
Breaking bread and just being in this space, man.
I love this.
It's good. It's good stuff. If you'll share this message with others, give us a like and a follow. You can find our website, healthehurt.org. Heal the Hurt's a nonprofit 501c3 organization designed to help others, those who are sick and afflicted, those who are suffering, those who do not have the resources to get treatment, medical care, mental health, trauma, addiction recovery, and we help them. We get them that treatment. And so your support supports healing your community and ours. And so thank you for being here, and have a great rest of your day. Thanks for joining us on the Heal the Hurt podcast. Please like and subscribe to us on X at Heal the Hurt USA, or on Facebook and YouTube and Instagram at Heal the Hurt Nonprofit. This podcast is brought to you by Hobble Creek Behavioral Health and is produced and edited by Motley Sounds.